Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. Today is the big event, the Climb to Kaiser. 155 miles, 14,000 feet of climbing. But I'm not doing it. With only 5 weeks of training for this event, and most of it in temperatures that ranged from 70 to 93 degrees, the forecasted temperatures of 103 to 106 degrees meant that while I could complete the event, I would not ride it like I would want to ride it. I opted instead to start the next phase in my training for the second half of the race season. So I went out with a couple of teammates and we did some climbing. And for me, that was fast climbing. My two teammates are Tom and Scott. Both of these guys are accomplished climbers. Our climbing we were going to do today was going to be about 5,000 feet, but I knew I was going to be able to stay with them for 5,000 feet. And coupling that with the fact that the racing that I do is nowhere near that long, I decided to concentrate on the first 2,000 feet. I was going to do the best that I could to match their pace for this first 2,000 feet. During my mid-season base building / getting ready for the big climbing event that I'm not doing today, I was riding between 9,000 and 13,000 feet each time. While this was getting my body used to climbing since I was not doing very much climbing before, it was not fast climbing. Simply put, if you want to be able to climb fast, you got to train fast climbing. The reason I was able to stay with Scott and Tom as long as I did during this first 2,000 feet of elevation gain was because of the style of spinning I was employing. And that style is full circle spinning. Let's take a hopefully reasonable example. Let's say rider A is a gear masher and is pressing down about 600 watts every time his leg presses down to keep the speed going about 9 miles an hour on a particular climb. Let's compare that to rider B, who's a full circle spinner, spinning at about 250 watts at every point in the circle to go that same speed. For their climbing speed to be increased, the masher, rider A, would have to significantly increase the power he applies each time he mashes down in order to maintain that fast momentum and therefore speed. While rider B, the spinner, would have to just increase his wattage a little bit at each point in the circle that he's spinning in order to maintain that faster speed. All things being equal between these two riders, the masher will wear out before the spinner will. This full circle accentuated power technique for climbing is something that I have to practice. The more I work on it, the longer I can maintain it when I need it. On today's ride, I rode about 20 miles out to the start to meet the others. After covering about 30 minutes worth of distance, we started an upward undulating 9-mile climb that took us from 300 feet to 1,650 feet. After we left the town of Prather, we had a couple more miles of undulating climbing, and then we started the main climb that we call Alder. This is 12 miles from the bottom to the top, in which about 9 miles of that is climbing. This first 1.75 miles to Jose Basin Road is the last of my 2,000 feet of race climbing training that I was doing with these guys. I was not able to maintain that full circle power spinning the entire time. It would come in surges. I would stay with Tom in this case for a little bit, and then I'd be slipping off the back, get my legs together, and then do another power spin surge, so to speak, and get up to him and maintain that for as long as I could. And I repeated this pretty much the whole way up the climb. After we reached Jose Basin Road together, I was pretty knackered, but Tom was still relatively fresh. He just kept up his speed while I just puttered along, recovering, waiting for Scott, who was doing his own pace up to that point. After about a mile of relative flats, climbing started again, and the only time I saw Tom and Scott were at the beginning. They were going pretty strong, and I was getting worn out. I shifted into my 34.29 and then just spun all the way up. When I got to the top, I was good and worn. For the last 5 weeks I put in all these miles and all this climbing, but that was all at endurance pace. Here now I'm going faster, and the energy gets used up quicker. Now next week I'm going to be stronger, and the week after that I'm going to be stronger even still. A good training plan, good execution, good technique is what's going to get me there. If all goes according to plan, Tuesday early morning I'm going to be working on this type of pedaling technique. Next Saturday, I'm going to have a road race out in Monterey, California. It's going to be short climbs, but they're going to be tough climbs. It will actually be the district's road race championship course, but I'm going to be doing it with a slightly younger group. That's going to make it a lot tougher. With my nearing the top to the Jose Basin Road portion of the Alder climb, I got to the front and picked it up in an effort to hopefully stave Tom off. Once at the top, my big effort is done. Meanwhile, Tom was just going to keep his speed up and continue the climb like that for another 8 or 9 miles. Once I dragged myself to the top, we continued down, and there were numerous times where Tom and Scott both had to nurse me in. Thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.